I always quote Albert Einstein. He's my favorite. He's my favorite because his quotes are really good, and they are in English. I can have better quotes in some Indian languages, but I will have to translate it. And generally, when you translate, the essence gets lost. So better to be neutral. So I'm using something which is closest to what I would want everybody to understand. So what does he say? I never teach my pupils. By the way, he was a professor, right? So he never teaches his students. I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. It is the conditions of learning. So I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. If you all recall, in the previous session, we spoke about the 21st century framework. And at the bottom, it was the learning environments, right? The most important thing to have is a learning environment. And that is exactly what Albert Einstein is also talking about here by saying, I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. And the easiest way for the teacher to provide those conditions is by asking questions. Oh yeah, teachers are very good at asking questions, but not necessarily the questions that are at the end of the chapter. But some questions that are thought-provoking, some questions that make the child think and not just look for answers. The children, the students should be forced to think about the answer, not search the answer. That is the difference which will have to be brought about. And that is when the imagination, the creativity, and the hope will get ignited. So for a teacher to be really involved in the teaching learning process, it's important that they first understand the difference between teaching and learning. Many of the teachers have forgotten that there is a component of learning as well while they are doing their job as teachers. Teaching can't go all by itself. Teaching can't be a one-way traffic. It has to be teaching and learning. Only then the outcomes will be beneficial for both. So let's look at teaching and learning. What are the differences? Teaching versus learning, right? So teaching is the process of imparting knowledge and instructions. Now look at this. It's a process. Yes, teachers, they are trained, they are experienced. In what? In imparting the knowledge and providing the instructions. Now, imparting knowledge is as per the syllabus, as per the curriculum. There is reference depending on the different boards. Whereas learning is the acquisition of knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, etc. Oh my goodness, there is a lot of things while we are doing the learning. Now, the only common word that I see between the two is knowledge. All other things are different. Okay, while knowledge is the common factor here, the teacher is imparting knowledge and the learner is acquiring the knowledge. Does that stop there with the learner? No. Learner is also acquiring behaviors, skills, values, etc. And where is that coming from? That is also coming from the teacher. But that is happening in the back end, in the background, wherein the behavior of the teacher is imbibed by the learner, by the students. The values, moral values, the skills, these are all things that the students learn by observing. So whatever the teacher gives, it doesn't stop at knowledge. The teacher is giving a lot more than the knowledge and the instructions. And the learner is acquiring it knowingly and unknowingly. This happens. It is like the communication. Verbal and non-verbal communication, same way. Learning is also happening at a continuous basis when the learner is observing the teacher, observing the environment around, and learn behaviors, values, attitudes, skills, all of it. So there is a difference. Now, people can teach something to others even unconsciously. This is exactly what I just mentioned. People learn throughout their lives, either consciously or unconsciously. Yes. So there is a constant learning that is happening. We are also learning a lot of things in every interaction that we are having. Every person we meet, we learn a few things. Every day there is a new situation and we learn something new. So it is happening consciously and unconsciously. One more. Teaching is always linked with learning and learners. Whereas learning, one does not need to be taught to learn something. I can learn something on my own. Classic example is this lockdown. Last 1.5 years, we have taken up to learning something new, something different than what we already know. We didn't have a teacher to teach us. We explored on our own. Students are also doing that. Now, why are we talking about all this? Is because it's important for you to have these talking points when you interact with the teachers. Simple things, but it's not just about going and telling them about our learning concepts. It's also aligning in how all of this would help you in your functioning as an effective teacher. An effective teacher can only be good when he or she gets the students to participate. When the teacher gets the student to be a partner in the process. And what is that process? It is the teaching learning process. It has to be a two-way traffic. One-way traffic, आया क्लास में, लेक्चर दिया, निकल गया. किसको समझा, किसको नहीं समझा, किसी को नहीं पता. ऐसे नहीं होता है. There needs to be a way in which the handshake between teaching and learning should happen. And our SIMECOR methodology would help in bridging this gap to a large extent. How? We have made it simple, we have made it meaningful, we are focusing on the concepts, and we are talking about reinforcements. So just think about a situation, okay? So wherein a teacher has finished a chapter, any of the grade, okay, grade 4, teacher has finished the chapter on say photosynthesis. The teacher says, okay, read the chapter, answer these questions as homework, and submit your homework. What would the students do? Go back home, go to the textbook, look up to the question, look up to the answer within the chapter, write it down, submit it. There is no thought process that is happening. There is a question and there is a given answer. I'm just looking at the question, looking into the chapter, look for the sentence, copy it, write it as it is. The teaching has happened, but the learning has not happened. And the reinforcement will never happen if I do this. Now, instead of this, what if the teacher says, right? If the teacher says that these are 3 pages in Acumen Today's volume number 2, page number 16, 17, 18. All of you go through those 3 pages and come ready for questions in the next class. Now, nobody knows what questions the teacher is going to ask. So, the students will go home, open up Acumen Today book, pages 16, 17, 18, go through it and understand whatever is there in those 3 books, in those 3 pages, 3 sheets, and be ready, because we have made it simple, we have made it meaningful, we are focusing only on the concept, and that reinforcement would happen because the teacher would have already taught that topic. That chapter is over. Now, the student is looking at something different, but related to the same topic, related to the same chapter, related to the same concept, and learning on his or her own way. And then start thinking as to what questions would the teacher ask. We have unconsciously got the teacher to imbibe the thinking process in the child. No ready-made questions, no ready-made answers. Now that is what has to be done because national education policy talks about it. We spoke about it earlier, right? So look at the way all of it is getting merged. National education policy, SIMECOR methodology, teaching learning process, role of a teacher, role of a student, role of a school, role of a parent, everything gets covered. And 21st century skills, Bloom's taxonomy, oh wow, it's like a completely integrated approach. Now, if you can talk about this, that's where the value comes about. That is where we can differentiate from others. That is where we can be different than what others are giving. Finally, what can we give, right? So we can't be giving more than what is there in the syllabus, can we? We have to adhere to the syllabus. We have to adhere to the curriculum, to the chapter. But if we focus on the concepts, we don't necessarily have to depend on question answer, copy paste.